What's up, Wargamers? We are back with another edition of Budget Wargamer, and I've got to tell you, if you've got $60 burning a hole in your pocket, in your hobby pocket, and I know you do, because you're probably addicted to the plastic crack like the rest of us, you have got to check out Warhammer Underworlds Shadespire. And the reason I say you got to check this out is that I bought it a while back because I collect Age of Sigmar models, and I already had a Khorne Bloodbound army, very heavy on the Blood Reavers as well. And I also had the Stormcast Eternals, and some of that was because of the starter box, but I've also expanded on both of those lists since getting that. And I really think that game has some awesome mechanics, and Warhammer Underworlds Shadespire is something unique. It actually exists sort of within that realm of Age of Sigmar, but it's not the Age of Sigmar rules. The models that come in the game and come in the expansions are unique to Warhammer Underworld Shadespire. They all kind of single-pose plastic, high-detailed models that come in colored plastics. There's currently the starter set. Let's take a look at the catalog, and then what I want to do is also break open the box and show you guys what's inside of it and just a little quick breakdown of the really basic rules mechanics. So I've just started dabbling in this. I'm not a grand tactician at it. I'm not a competitive player, although this is certainly meant to be a competitive game from Games Workshop. I haven't seen people playing it in my local game stores. I have multiple local game stores, very fortunate near me. I did hear from some of you guys that your local game stores have closed up, but you got to get out there and support your local game store. If you're fortunate enough to have one, make sure you purchase it there. Don't run off to eBay. I would hesitate even to buy it directly from Games Workshop if you have the friendly local game store alternative. And hopefully they're already carrying Shadespire on the shelves. If not, you need to talk to that hobby store owner and make sure that they pick you up a copy and recommend that they pick it up, at least a store copy, so that way they can have one on the shelves. Because at $60, you're not buying it just for the models, although they're fantastic, and we'll show you those here. I've got a couple cameras that we're going to break out to. And speaking of which, how y'all doing tonight? So we're going to break out with the Warhammer Shadespire. I've got a top-down camera that we're going to show as well, so that way you can see it on the tabletop. But this is something I highly recommend picking up. Why? Because it's fun and it fits into the budget. So that's two reasons why I would definitely do that. Now, let's take a look at what they're selling you for $60. There's tons of expansions. I do recommend picking up the card sleeves for $8 a set. Sounds a little bit steep, but if you're already into Magic the Gathering or War Machine or any other game that requires cards, I recommend it because if you plan to play, you want to be able to protect those. Now, you're not really going to shuffle them per se, but you will need to just at least make sure that they are well protected, so that way you can get your use out of them, because they currently don't sell any of the card packs separately from the model packs. So if you want the models or the cards for the Stormcasts and the Blood Reavers that come in the starter box, you got to buy another starter box. Same thing goes for the Orcs, Skeletons, Dwarves, Skaven. What else we got? We've got some other ones, but there's two more coming out here. We've also got the Khorne and the another Stormcast set coming out. So, but for $60, you're getting a 2-player starter set. So there's enough models in here. You're going to get 3 of the Stormcast Eternals, 5 of the Blood Reavers that come from the Khorne army. And it's pretty much an even battle. It's not a points-based game system from what I've read, which is a little bit weird because I think competitively we're used to doing that, but it's really just meant to... It's more of a deck builder game, honestly, because what you have is a fixed set of models. So if you're going to play Stormcast Eternals, you're going to use the 3 models that come in the box. If you're going to play the Khorne list, you're going to play the 5 models that come in the box. If you're going to play the Orcs, you're going to play the 4 models that come in that box. So that's not the competitive part of it. The troops do have different stats from army to army, but really the luck of the draw, literally, and the competitiveness can be in the deck building. And that also leads you, let's say you're playing Stormcast Eternals and you think to yourself, I have no desire whatsoever to get into Orcs. Well, now you might, because some of the tactical cards that you might want to put into your deck might be included in the Orc expansion. So they've kind of got an aha moment there, and not aha as in Take On Me or any of the other one-hit wonders of the 1980s, but an aha moment as in, now we got you, you're going to need to buy these models, and then whoever you would be, like, it's hard to split because the next person's going to want the box too, not necessarily for that one card that you want or whatever the case may be, But I guess that's kind of how X-Wing was played out from Fantasy Flight. If you got into X-Wing, Star Trek Attack Wing, things like that, and it is Star Trek, not Star Trek. Just to clarify for you nerds out there that didn't live in the 80s and 90s, and I was not around for the original series, but back then I guess they didn't call it the original series. So I didn't watch that Scott Bakula disaster with Enterprise, but I also want to do a quick moment. We've been growing by leaps and bounds, and I really do appreciate you guys. Hopefully the audio is okay on this iteration. I've got the mic off to the side so I can get to the point and start showing you guys a little bit more about stuff hands-on. So thanks for bearing with me. So we've got a couple new people since yesterday's video that have jumped in. John Bennett, thanks for subscribing. Tercio Gaming, holler back at you guys. We've got a couple more that I wanted to give a shout out to. Ice God 2021, Micah Jimenez, hopefully I pronounced that right for you. The Supreme Diggity, no diggity, I'd like to bag it up. So, and then The Book Devourer, I think we got to you yesterday. So more power to you guys. I like the fact that we are chugging along. We're working towards 200 subscribers here. If you've been with us for a couple months, we have been trying to build up this channel for a few years half-heartedly and then decided to dive right in. So let's take a look at some of the expansions that are out there. I've got a few of them in-house. The ones I've already picked up also are the Sepulchral Guard and the Iron Skulls boys. And I was actually hobbying on those Iron Skulls boys yesterday. Got them about halfway painted up. I have my Sepulchral Guard painted up, but I actually have not yet painted up any of the models that came in the starter box. So oddly enough, shame on me. There we go. So the other newer sets are the Chosen Axes and then the Spike Claws Swarm Collection. I want to call them Gutter Runners, but you know, they're basically, every army has its own sort of quirk, its own strengths, its own weaknesses. It could, whether it's mobility or the ability to regenerate or the ability to summon new models, such as I think the Skaven have that ability, and the Sepulchral Guard have the ability to bring more models in, resurrect some of the most basic models to represent their limitless numbers, and the hordes that come along with rats, and then also the reanimation of those guys. So back in, we're going to get into the top-down featurette. So here's what we've got. If you don't believe we're hobbying all the time, this is my computer setup, aka hobby setup, meaning I'm always hobbying on here. So I've got down my cutting mat, which is great for getting glue and stuff like that on, a glass tabletop here on the wooden desk. And it's just pretty much more cluttered than this most of the time, but I realized I needed to get things out there. I've got the premium, so this is the super premium Games Workshop mic stand. It's actually the Stormcast Eternals paint set. I picked those up because those types of paint sets are really awesome for not only getting the starter brush, which I'm addicted to starter brushes. I've been hanging on to some starter brushes for a while from other sets. I get a lot of hobby miles out of those things. I've got a couple of them sitting over here that I haven't even busted the seal on, and then I've got some in those boxes. So rather than swinging like the $8 for a basic base coat brush, detail brush, I pull the standard duty with those starter brushes and some other stuff. And then the paints, it's hit or miss. Sometimes they come in dried up. I wish Games Workshop would do a better job of making sure that those sets weren't dried up. But here we are. Without further ado, we've got Warhammer Underworlds Shadespire. This is the box set. It's quite hefty. Feels like you're picking up an encyclopedia, if you guys remember what those were before the days of Google. And then we've got some models we're going to get into here. I'm going to have to figure out creatively how to get you guys a close-up of them. And these are the models that come in the box, so you're going to get, and these are the colored plastics. So you're going to get 3 of the Stormcast Eternal characters. I don't know their names yet, but that's what they are. I've played some starter games with my son, having a great time figuring it out. He actually likes playing Shadespire now. And then we've got the Khorne Blood Reavers, a really ballsy leader there, a marauder of some sorts. Man, he was almost zoomed in. This camera sucks, by the way. Don't get the Logitech 1080 Stream. It doesn't have really good autofocus feature. I generally will use my Canon camera, and that has excellent dual pixel autofocus, but it was in the trunk of the car and I'm lazy, right? So if I wasn't lazy, then I'd probably have all my hobby stuff painted up. Back there in the hobby bunker, we've got some cases full of armies, of which are in various states of painting, not painting, things like that. And then out in the garage, I've got way too much, and even got models in the car I haven't even sadly brought into the house yet. But these are the models that come in the box. So we'll set these guys off to the side. I guess it'd make more sense there. We'll create a sideline, kind of like in Blood Bowl. And if you like Blood Bowl, you might like the competitiveness and quirkiness of Shadespire. It's not meant to be the same type of thing as Blood Bowl, but it's still fun in that weird way. So you're going to get a real basic rule book, and it's going to give you the backstory of what Shadespire is. And in a nutshell, Shadespire was a great city that was ruled by excess, like much of the Empire and much of the old world. And Nagash basically controlled the dead beings that were there, and somehow these people got cursed by Nagash, and they all began to die. And it was because they had figured out that the shade glass that was in the city would trap your souls and give your soul eternal life, and somehow that screwed up. But basically these people are stuck in a nightmarish otherworld. So there are adventurers that venture into the Shadespire city, or the city of mirrors, and they don't come out. So they get stuck in this like halfway between light and dark, halfway between heaven and hell type of concept. Nagash prevents them, as they're cursed, from being able to experience the afterlife. So he doesn't even, it was like the ultimate revenge. He could have just greedily said, oh no, these people are going to have to come into my world and serve me, but he thought it was even better just to not even give them the peace of the afterlife. So they must have done something horribly bad, but there's a little bit of backstory in there. And then if you've got a friend, what's cool is that each of these tile sets that you're going to get, so these fold open like an old Milton Bradley board, and they're double-sided. So, you know, this side's got like a catacomb on it. This side's got like a staircase ruin of some sort. So you can't play with both of those sides unless you get a second board set, and the boards are currently only contained within the starter box. So even if you wanted to play as the orcs or something like that, you're still going to get suckered into the starter box. Plus, there's cards in the starter box that you're going to want to get tactically. So you're not going to be as competitive if you just get the orc box by itself, because you're going to be missing out on some of the combat style cards. So then here's like a toppled statue. So what you end up doing to create your board is you could just play singly. Like when I play with my son, since we're just learning the rules, we just play across one side of the board to the other, and what that means is you guys pretty much get straight into hand-to-hand combat right away. Let's go ahead and shut off this FaceTime camera for a second. What you could also do is alternatively layer your boards into lengthwise, put them into offsets where you've got some of them diagonal to create like hallways and staircases, things like that. And the more boards you put together, the bigger your battlefield is, the further apart you and your enemy are going to be. And that just gives you more tactics of which you have to apply movement. So it's really a game of positioning, because you get bonuses in combat for being side to side with your peers that help you make better and more effective attacks. And let's take a dive in to what the stat cards look like. I have yet to sleeve these guys up, but I do have the sleeves available. So you're going to get some stat cards for your troops, close up. Hopefully the autofocus works somewhat. So there you go. You've got it. We'll turn back on the FaceTime camera so you guys can see my grizzly mane here. All right, so speaking of beards, if you haven't checked out my friend Redbeard Boss, he's another YouTube fanatic. He's been just kind of pouring his heart out there, doing more of like a Warhammer diary of some sort. It seems like, I don't know how to summarize his channel, but he's not really spilling the news. He's just like peer-to-peer. It's kind of like having a friend out there. And I listen to his YouTube channels often on my long rides to work. So believe it or not, yeah, I don't make a fortune on YouTube with 190 subscribers. But, you know, you got to start somewhere, right? So there's two sides of the cards. You've got the inspired side, which usually will be like how your troops will start off, or if there's any effects that make your guy inspired. And every card has a difference in what inspired means to them. So let's take a closer look at Karsus the Chained as an example. So here's his standard. He's got a range of 2 with his chain, a range of 1 with his chop, because he's got an axe with a chain on it. He does 3 attacks either or, 1 damage with the chained axe, and 2 damage with the brutal chop. A movement of 4. His 1 dice defense, he needs a swoop or other effects depending on the situation, and he's got 3 health. So this means that at least 3 fighters are out of action. So once the third fighter of the team of 5 goes out of action and you're down to a team of 2, this group is no longer inspired. So they start off inspired, and what the main difference here you're going to see is he's got one more movement in his particular case, and then he's also got a special ability called Savage Whirl, which means that he targets all adjacent enemies, and he rolls for each. So you get this dude, and he's not going to hurt his friends, which is weird because somehow his chain passes through his buddies. He can just like hop, skip, and play duck, duck, goose with his chained axe. But maybe he's just that good, got that high of a weapon skill. But let's say you run him up, and let's put him down here. So this dude coming in, brutal strong, and he is this guy right here. So he's got an axe with a chain on it, like kind of chained to a wristband. Let's say he comes in, and he's got a buddy of his next to him, but then you've got two of them right there, two of the good guys right there. So he's going to actually be able, when he's inspired, to be able to hit this one and this one with his chained axe, skipping over his friend. But because he's side by side with his friend, he's still going to get a bonus ability. And let's show you the dice, because like a lot of the traditional Games Workshop board games out there, they don't come with your standard D6. So you're going to get attack dice and defense dice. And in this case, because these are the standard dice, white are your attack dice and black are your defense dice, and they have different face values. So the attack dice, you're going to have 2 hammers on it. So anybody who requires a hammer to hit is going to hit 1 out of 3 times. And then you always hit on a critical, which is going to be your exclamation point. So basically, if you need hammers to hit, hammer make them hurt, you're going to have a 50% chance to hit. If you need swords, there's only going to be 1 of them on there. So that sucks, because then that means that sword plus critical hit means you're only going to have a 1/3 chance of hurting somebody. But here's where the special dice come into play. You've got a half circle and you've got a full circle. And when you're side by side with a friend of yours, you're going to also hit, regardless of your ability, on this half circle or on the full circle. So there's different ways of which you can basically almost always hit. So if you were a fully buffed person that hit on hammers, you would only miss on swords. And if you're a fully buffed person that hit on swords, you would miss on the 2 hammers. So you could get really in there. So let's show you how Karsus would attack in this case. So he's going to come in and he's going to attack with his Savage Whirl. And his Savage Whirl targets all adjacent enemies. You can't use his chained axe, you have to use this special ability. And he's going to get 2 dice, so 2 white dice per attack. So he's going to roll 2 white dice against this character, and that's a miss and a miss because he needs swords as mentioned on his card. And this is where it's going to show you. You've got the range of the attack, what's required to hit, and the amount of damage done by each hit. Then you would roll 2 more dice at this character here, and you're going to hit on the critical hit because I rolled an exclamation point there. I didn't roll any swords. So you can see where these games are not definitively going to cause damage to somebody. But so this guy here, he's going to be able to roll. He's going to get 1 defense dice, and he's going to save on shields. And shields give you a 1 in 3 chance of saving. Really a 50% chance, because you're also going to always save on the criticals. So you're going to have shields, 2 of those, and a critical. If you need a swoop, then you're only going to save on the swoop and the exclamation point. And then you've got the half circle and the full circle. So we would roll to save, and he would actually block that one attack, saving both damage because he rolled what was required on his stat line. But if somebody was attacking Karsus the Inspired, he would only have, because he doesn't have a lot of armor, he would only have the ability to dodge, or whatever you want to call that swoop ability. So once you're down below, you're going to lose your buffs. So every card has the buff ability, but it has different amounts of what is their buff. So in the case of these Khorne Blood Reavers, they become faster and oftentimes get a little bit nastier attacks. Take a look at Arnulf Inspired. He gets Piercing Blade and Axe. So on a critical hit action, he deals 1 extra damage, and he keeps that ability. So he's actually getting 1 extra attack. So that's his inspired ability and 1 movement. So it's really good to know, because these are your stat cards for each of your models, and you don't have to draw these. These always come out and play, and they have no backs to them. So the sleeves that they give you actually have clear front and back for these 5 cards in particular. The other ones have art backs that will tell you what type of card they are, because you have combat cards, like the cards you draw on to have a hand, and those are the ones that you want to be able to play to give you effects in the turn. And then you've got like objective cards, of which you have to have a fixed amount. I think it's 12 of the objective cards. So there you've got those objective cards with their different backs. And then you've got your combat cards, of which you could take these or you could take some from some of the other sets. And you have to pay attention because some are specific to a character and some are specific to an army, so not all are necessarily going to be advantageous. And then here's the inspired and standard versions of the Stormcast Eternals. So these guys, you know, they basically, he's going to get an extra defense, making him really hard as nails to hit. And then this fighter rolls a shield or exclamation point when the target of an attack. So these guys have different abilities, which is quite interesting. These guys are just tough. These guys are going to stand their ground and knock people down. Not only do they tend to have more damage points, more health points, but their defense is second to none. But they are not a fast army by any chance. So they're really stalwart. They're going to have to kind of stand their ground and defend themselves. But here's some objectives of which you guys would get in your objective deck. So that's those. And then this is going to give you different conditions that have to be met. So it says score this in an end phase if you are holding objective 5. So somewhere on here you have the objectives. So 3, 5, or 6, a 4, 1, 5, or 6. It's kind of interesting. Right now I've just been playing with the game mechanics, so this isn't like a super in-depth breakdown for you guys, but here's like a combat ability. This one's just heroic guard. It says choose a friendly fighter and put them on guard, so it allows you to do that for them. Choose an enemy fighter and push them 1 hex in any direction. Peal of Thunder. This is good because it could actually, this is the type of card that could actually move your opponent off of the objective and allow you to come in and take it. Or you can push them away out of combat, so that way they're not going to provide their buffs or bonuses to their friends nearby. So there's a lot of reasons. Or you could push them into combat with an opponent, with a character of yours. A lot of ways you could use that to your advantage. So it doesn't specify any limitations of how you can use it, and we'll basically leave that up to you guys. So you want to be able to have a nice, good deck. And it says there's like 437 cards or something in the total set. You don't get that many inside the box, and it's not random, but there's a whole other set of cards here that says these are extra combat cards. These will help you diversify your deck. But if you're just looking to get started, they do give you that standard deck of which you can play with right out of the box, right out the get-go, without having to worry about how to build a fairly competitive deck. So that's nice that they give you that consideration when building out the game box. Now another cool thing I think about this set is that the bottom of the box kind of, instead of just being your normal cardboard, is built out sort of like a fighter pit, and it's not a piece of terrain like some of the more recent boxes with the other games out there like First Strike and stuff like that, but it's still cool that they kind of have this. It's more of like a tray. When you're playing competitively, you put your cards, put your models in here, and your dice, or you can use it as a dice box to roll your dice so they don't go everywhere. But it's kind of cool that it's all thematic. So yeah, there's your nice little dice tray that you've got courtesy of Games Workshop and their packing materials. So that's something neat that's in there. And you'll have to check underneath that for your dice and some of the other things when you get the box fresh. But that's essentially, in a nutshell, what comes in this box. And it plays out super fast. It's kind of like a game of chess meets War Machine meets Age of Sigmar, of course, and just totally digging it. This is just something that you guys can sit down, play through a game in like 20 minutes. It's so fast-paced. You could play longer, but you don't have to worry about list building. You just literally, if you wanted to come and play Khorne, and you want to play this particular list of Khorne, although there's going to be another new Khorne list, they don't intermingle yet. These are just your 5 models. If you want to play Stormcast, those are your 3 models. You want to play Sepulchral Guard or the Undead, you get your 7 models. And the Sepulchral Guard are the most numerous so far. Those guys are weak. They don't take a lot of damage, so like one nice good hammer blow to the head will send them back into the undeath. But they can resurrect the most basic petitioners and bring them back as long as you have your Warden still in play. So this is something fun. I highly recommend. $60. You guys get in there. We'll wrap it up here at the 25-minute mark. You've been watching Budget Wargamer. Stay tuned to us for some more hobby videos.